I was walking home through empty fields in the middle of a heat wave. A woman in a bright red sari appeared beside me. I could hear her anklets. I tried to catch up to her. No matter how fast I walked, she stayed ahead. Then she vanished. When I got home, my neighbor was waiting for me. He looked at me and said something strange. That night, my fever hit 102 degrees. The next morning, I was fine. But I've never forgotten what I saw. This happened when I was in 10th standard. I lived in a colony more than 25 kilometers from the city. Every day, I took a company bus to school. The driver was the worst human being you could imagine. He changed routes whenever he liked. He never stopped for students who weren't standing exactly at the designated stop. He had no consideration for anyone. That day was one of the hottest days in June. The driver decided he wouldn't drop us near our houses. Instead, he left us at the entrance of the colony. I lived on the opposite end. A little over 2 kilometers from the gate, I watched the other people walk away. None of them lived on my side. I started walking alone in the scorching sun. I was cursing the driver, thinking about how I'd complain about him. I knew a shortcut. It would cut the distance to my house. But it meant crossing two big fields. One was covered with shrubs 3 to 6 feet high. The other was a plain field with a helipad in the center. There were two houses in between, mostly empty all year. The path wasn't scary, just deserted. But as a kid who'd grown up listening to stories about people getting scared there, it felt like a place for adventure. I took the path anyway. It was already 3 p.m. The heat was unbearable. Hot winds were blowing. I wanted to get home fast. Walking through the shrub field, I remembered all the stories. I thought about how I'd defend myself if something happened. It was an okay walk until I heard rustling in the bushes, more than once. It felt like it was following me. I stopped to listen. A man on a bicycle passed by. His face was covered with white cloth to protect against the heat. I called out to him twice. I asked for a lift. He ignored me and cycled away. Then the rustling started again. I walked faster. I crossed the first field and reached a road about 200 meters long. The empty houses were there. At the end was the second field. I had to cross it diagonally to reach home. It was getting hotter. The wind was blowing faster. I was in the middle of the second field when I heard something strange. The sound of heavy anklets. Right next to me, I turned. A woman was walking past me. She was over 5 feet 10 inches tall. I was 5 feet 8. She wore a bright red sari. Simple, new maybe. She was in her 30s. Probably married, judging by the ornaments she wore. A huge veil covered her face. I didn't understand how she had gotten behind me. The sound of her anklets was impossible to ignore. I would have heard her coming, but something else was strange. As she passed me, I felt goosebumps all over my body. Maybe it was the sun. Maybe it was something else. I started walking faster. I wanted to see her face. I wanted to get ahead of her, just to see her from the front. No matter how fast I walked, the distance between us never changed. I could hear her anklets. A constant rhythm. Steady. Hypnotic. I walked so fast that any faster and I would have been running. Still, she stayed ahead. The rhythm of the anklets was the only sound in the field. We reached the small elevation leading to the helipad in the middle of the field. Then something happened. I snapped out of it. Like waking from a dream, like coming out of hypnosis. I was standing on the helipad, alone. The woman was gone. The field was empty. Not a bird in sight. There was no way she could have disappeared. We were in the middle of a field that could hold 20,000 people. There was nowhere to hide. No trees. No buildings. Nothing. I felt strange. Every pore on my skin was awake. I started questioning myself. Did I imagine her? Was there ever a woman at all? I started walking toward home. My house wasn't far. I reached my gate. As I was about to open it, I heard a loud sound. Ahem. My neighbor was standing there. He was an older man. He had some knowledge of things like the evil eye. He had a shaman in his village who gave him mantras. He wasn't a healer exactly, but from time to time he helped with things when kids had fevers. When babies wouldn't stop crying, it always worked. He looked at me and said, "Where do you think you are going?" His voice was loud. Usually, he teased me. He acted tough. But this time, he was just looking at me directly. I was still feeling strange. I didn't know what to say. I gave him a salute and walked inside. I didn't see it, but he stayed there, looking at the gate behind me. By evening, I had a fever, 102 degrees, out of nowhere. My neighbor's wife came to our house. She brought cloves. She told my mother to tie them to my hands. I didn't ask why. The next morning, I was fine, completely normal. My mother was furious. The neighbor's wife had told her something about where I'd been walking. I asked my mother what the neighbor had seen. She was too busy yelling at me to explain. Later, I found out. The neighbor had seen something attached to me, something that followed me home from the fields. I don't know what it was. I don't know if the woman in the red sari was real. I don't know if I imagined her. But I know I had a fever that night. I know the cloves helped. I know my neighbor saw something on me. Something else happened after that. I won't go into it now. But again, my neighbor was there. Again, he did something to help. Later, he told my parents that I've always been very perceptive. He said it's because of the position of the moon and Mercury in my natal chart. He said things like, this might have happened before. They might happen again. Sometimes I notice them. Most times, I don't. I've never seen the woman in the red sari again. I've never walked through those fields alone since. But sometimes, on hot days, when the wind blows, I think about her. The sound of her anklets. The way she stayed ahead of me, no matter how fast I walked. The way she vanished in the middle of an empty field. I don't know what I saw that day. I don't know if she was real. I don't know if she was something else. But I know this. When my neighbor looked at me, he saw something attached to me. And that night, my fever hit 102 degrees. I don't walk through empty fields anymore. Not alone. Not in the heat. And every time I see a woman in a red sari, I stop. I watch. I wait. Because I still don't know if she'll stay ahead of me or if one day she'll turn around.